I'm Matt McCright. I'm a concert pianist and a professor at Carleton College in Minnesota. I have been asked to do this project for Composer's Voice, so I'm very thrilled to do that.
Welcome, everyone. McCright has been called an intrepid explorer of new music and has performed extensively throughout the United States, Europe, Asia, and the South Pacific as a piano soloist and a chamber musician. His imaginative programming places the greatest piano repertoire alongside the music of today's most innovative composers. His new album, Endurance, commemorates his performances of works by Kirsten Broberg, Kyung-Mi Choi, Christopher Coleman, Sean Fryer, Mike McFerrin, Ingrid Stoltzel, Robert Voisey, and me, Dorothy Heinemann. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Matthew, performing Wanting Night Music, a movement from my piano solo, Forward Looking Back.
So I'm Matt McCright. I'm a concert pianist and a professor at Carleton College in Minnesota, and I am now been here for 18 years in Minneapolis, at Carleton for 15 years. I'm from a small town in Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh, and I was very fortunate to have kind of a world-class pianist kind of come into town, and she was taking on private students, and she had been in New York, worked at the Juilliard School, so she had had this wonderful career, and I was just so fortunate to have this person kind of dropped into my life at the really pivotal time when I needed a serious teacher to kind of get me on the path, because I knew I wanted to be a pianist of some sort. She was always very great about encouraging me to explore the music that spoke to me, rather than put me through the paces of, well, you must do this, and then you do this, and then at the end of that path, you'll be a concert pianist. And so she let me kind of go with the flow of my own heart, I guess, and head, what I felt like I could play well. And so I was able to start exploring the music of Prokofiev and Bartók and Debussy, which were not normal for the rest of her students. They were more playing Bach and Chopin, Mendelssohn. And I realized that not only did I play the music better, this kind of 20th century repertoire, but I also enjoyed the sound worlds that were opened up to me. And that positioned me when I was an undergrad to be, I guess, in the right moment for Lisa Moore to enter my life, and kind of took me under her wing and showed me kind of the world of what contemporary music really was. And she was able to show me not only through my lessons with her in New York, but also listening to her recordings, following her as she was a member of Bang on a Can, and listening to what they were playing and kind of opening my ears to that world. And so it was through that I was then able to kind of charge forward and start working with composers, which was a fascinating avenue for me to take. You know, we can't really make a phone call to Brahms and ask, what did you mean by this, and why would you write it this way? But when I was working with living composers, it was very easy to kind of get a sense of, why is it this way? And could we do it this way? Does that affect your kind of artistic vision for the piece? And I found that to be super exciting, and I've not looked back since. Hello there, Sean.
Hello.
We kind of met online, and I was kind of curious about a piece that you had written many years ago called Elastic Loops, and I liked the recording, which I believe was you playing, if I remember correctly, and I wanted to see if I could actually accomplish the same kind of level of virtuosic display that your recording did. And when I reached out, then you had said, well, why don't we revise this? And then I had no idea what I was getting involved with. So maybe you can kind of answer what kind of prompted you to think about an older piece and expanding it almost twice as long now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, poor you, right? Because you were thinking, oh, this is an 8-minute piece. It sounds pretty hard. It is an endurance test, even the original version. Right. And then I went and made it twice as long. It was really serendipitous timing when you got in touch with me, because this was one of those pieces, and I have a couple where I just never feel quite done with them. Even though there's a double bar line, it sounds like a complete piece. I'm always thinking about, I could have extended this or gone in a different direction. And so it had been on my list for a long time to revise this. And then when you got in touch, that was the perfect impetus. It's like, all right, it's happening now. This is as good as an opportunity as any. Great.
Composers are looking to every possible source for inspiration. There's no one kind of common practice way anymore. And so I think that gave me this ability to look at the world from the practical standpoint of how do I make a career doing this? And it really opened up because I found out that there were very few pianists like me doing that would do what I do, meaning almost exclusively new music.
And I'm back, Dorothy Heinemann, with Kyung-mi Choi. And Kyung-mi, it's a pleasure to introduce you. Kyung-mi is an old friend. We've known each other a very, very long time. And I've enjoyed listening to your music over all of these years. And Kyung-mi is not just a composer. She is also a visual artist, an organist, which I didn't know until just now, a painter, and a poet. Kyung-mi, so you employ extended techniques and speaking and all kinds of different elements in your music. And it seems to me, and I've spoken with Matt about this, that usually a pianist, is trained to put all of their emotional expressivity in their hands and out through the music. That's kind of the cultural way that we're used to it. It's the performance practice. And so, but when you ask a pianist to, say, speak or do something dramatic or have some kind of extended techniques with the piano, how does that affect how a pianist would approach the expression of emotion in the piece? When it's so completely sort of outside of what they would normally do.
Well, thank you. It's a very interesting question. And I think that in a way that everything either it's extended technique or not, I always consider them as a sound source. So I found the extended technique is something that probably not necessarily practiced that much, but it's an extension of what I'm trying to do, so to speak. So that's where I think it's not just isolated event. It's more connected with the previous context or what will come next. So it is in a way the extension of the expression. For me, I found that is an expression in the phrasing or sentiment or sensation. that I want to enhance a little bit through this technique. That's how I see it, and I hope that's how listeners to also perceive that way.
Hello, I'm Ingrid Stölzel, and I'm the composer of Unus Mundus. The piece was commissioned for the centennial celebration of Korean composer and longtime German resident Is Sang-yun. I've long been fascinated by Yun's compositions, and whenever I'm asked to write a piece of music in memory of another person, I want to find a way to bring them into my compositions. Is Sang-yun believed in the power of music, and he was strongly influenced by Taoist philosophy, in which the dark and the light are intertwined with each other. I believe that music, in its deepest expression, has the power to fuse opposites to create oneness that cannot be fragmented. Because as Carl Jung says, and I quote, "Everything divided and different belongs to one and the same world." This concept, which Jung called unus mundus, from Latin, one world, seemed like a fitting title for a composition honoring Is Sang-yun. Thank you so much.
I'd say the most rewarding part about the contemporary music being a specialization of mine, I think, is that we get to sort of, as people who pursue this, sift history for everyone. We've got hundreds of recordings, maybe thousands of recordings of the old masters. But the music of living composers right now, they don't have as many advocates, just by the sheer nature of they haven't lived as long and not as many people play their repertoire. And so part of what I get to do by looking and exploring is figuring out what, in the small way, I can contribute to, this is a good piece. Hey, everybody, I've played this a lot. I've took the time to record it. It's worth listening to, and maybe you should play it too. That's a really kind of awesome responsibility, yes, but I think it's also quite a unique experience in the world of where the canon of classical art music is going. I get to be a part of helping to sort that. And so that's kind of thrilling for me. I guess the kind of polar opposite of that previous comment is that I don't get to turn to 100 different recordings to figure out, well, gosh, what is the right tempo? What do people do? I have to discover that all on my own, and I have to deliver and communicate that to an audience who may have never, A, heard a contemporary music piece before, or B, never heard that particular composer before. And how do I sell that? How do I make it something that's engaging and communicative of what I have to say about the piece and also what the composer has to say? It's a big obligation, and I'm happy to do it.